racism.
Right, okay. Am I allowed to respond to this? Am I allowed to respond yet?
You can respond now.
Okay, I think what you just said about the Queen is disgusting. I think it's unbelievable. You talk about the behaviour of a nation.
Am I lying when I said that?
Allow me to say what I'm. Allow me to explain.
And the institution is protecting.
Right, allow me to defend our royal family. Thank you.
You tell me.
What about the behaviour of Harry and Meghan, who are spray gunning his family on global television as Philip lies in hospital? You might laugh. I don't think it's funny. I think it's piling hurt on the Queen, who is already suffering greatly from her husband's illness.
I'm going to respond to that. What I don't think is funny, I'll tell you what I don't think is funny. It's the fact that you were such a disappointment. I wish to God one day you even surprise me. You constantly use your platform as a wealthy, white, privileged man with power and influence to
what a load of
and
nonsense, honestly.
The biggest,
what a load of race-baiting nonsense.
And the misogynist attacks on Meghan Markle. And you do it so shamelessly.
We have...
Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, we shall always fight for our rights. Àlùtà mẹ́ta làwa yóò ṣe. Àlùtà mẹ́ta làwa yóò ṣe. Àlùtà mẹ́ta làwa yóò ṣe. Àlùtà mẹ́ta làwa yóò ṣe.
That's why I think my speakers roofing.
That must go! 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 That must go!
What do you want?
Exas!
What do you want?
Exas!
What do you want?
Exas!
What do you want?
Exas! Exas!
Yes. In Ogbomosho yesterday, SARS are still killing people. Yes. SARS are still arresting people. We want immediate end and termination of the operation of SARS. Now. We are not going to keep quiet on the issues affecting the nation. Let it be preached across the nation that the Nigerian youth, this political consciousness is being awoken in us because of the marginalization, because of the intimidation, because of the marginalization. We are saying no to the SARS brutality. We are saying no to the marginalization. We are saying no to the corruption. We are saying no to every evil being practiced in Nigeria. And that is why, at this point, the Nigerian state, the Nigerian youth, we want to make a statement. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming to this family.
Àdúrà mẹ́ta mo gbà fún Déjàre.
In my heart there's a permanent place for you. That's why my heart is a beat like do bang, do bang.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Under the law, everyone else running under the law, Alexander and Kebola legally as husband and wife.
I don't want any X-Man in the one land again.
dollar for any. Someone come save me from Delilah. Save me from Delilah. Yeah, Elijah.
global celebration of the woman is here again, and coincidentally, the first woman and the first African to be appointed as the DG of the World Trade Organization has just resumed office. Interesting, right? There are thousands of things to be known about this woman, and KOKO TV has just taken this bold step of bringing you all of the things that you do not know about the wonderful Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Join me as I speak with Onyinye Iweala, the first and eldest child of the Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala family. This is Layo Shobo, and you know, it's a patriarchal world where men are kind of, have more opportunities. So how did mom handle all of this sexism and then racism, being a Black African? How did she handle all of this? Are there points where probably she broke down that or saw or something? How did she take all of this?
That's a great question. I feel like my mom learned a lot of lessons from her dad, actually, and she tried to pass those along to me and prepare me for some of the things that I might experience based on her own experiences. But she said, when she was leaving Nigeria to go to the US, to go to Harvard for college, her dad said to her, he was like, look, there's racism in the United States. But what you have to remember, even when you hear these difficult things that are hard to hear and they're hurtful and painful, it's not your problem, it's their problem. And I think that's something that my mom repeated to herself. And that's what helped her get through these difficult situations where people are just acting highly inappropriately or, doing things that just don't make any sense. And you just have to remember it's racism, but the racism is not on you. You just go out there and do the best you can. It's their problem, not your problem. So that's one thing that she repeated, and she also tried to pass on to me as well. But that's not to say that it's not hard, Just because you have that saying in the back of your head and just because you know that that's true doesn't mean it isn't painful when you get that sting and you're like, wait, why did that just happen? Or like, why was I passed over? Why am I invisible and they're not listening to what I have to say? So like, for example, I think my mom would, there's sometimes situations where you say something and then no one makes a sound or acknowledges that you said something. And then someone else will say the exact same thing. And then everyone will be like, oh yes. And that's the person that repeated it is a man. And then so my mom has been in those kinds of situations. And so instead of like waiting to contribute in the middle of a meeting, my mom, the way she would deal those types of situations was she would be sure to speak first. She would jump up and she would say, hey, I think X, Y, and Z about, ABC problem, and just put it out there at the very beginning. That way it wouldn't get drowned out in the course of a discussion. And then later on, when other people were saying things, they'd have to say, oh yes, as Ngozi said, it's ABC and X, Y, Z. And I was like, oh, that's a really good strategy. So I think just over the years, she's developed strategies to cope. She actually wrote a book about this kind of stuff, actually in co-authored, with the former Prime Minister from Australia. So I think check that out. That would be a good, yeah.
I surely would do that. So, but about you now, all of this sexism, racism, how did you feel about her? Then recently, a Swiss media, called her a grandma. It's not about me here, so it's about you. So how did you feel about that? How?
Yeah, I think seeing that report and seeing the furor, over that report, it sort of emphasizes the same thing that my mom and her co-author discussed in their book. This idea that whenever we think about women and women in the professional space, instead of first addressing their professional capabilities, we always try to domesticize them. We always try to think about them in the context of their family. And there's nothing wrong, with thinking about a person in the context of their family. It's just that, why don't we do that for men? Why don't we say a grandfather has been appointed as XYZ, And the thing is, men have families too. So I think all they're trying to say is we need to be equitable in how we describe and how we characterize people, because unfortunately, people try to pigeonhole women into only domestic roles or put them in the context of a domestic role. It makes you think that the only role for a woman is within the domestic sphere. But I don't think my mom has she doesn't have wouldn't take offense to being thought of as a grandma. She is a grandma. It's just that in the context of being, you know, leading world organizations and discussing trade and economic things, we should talk about her personal credentials. Like there's a time and place for everything.
So you didn't feel somehow about it? It was just one of those things for you, or how did you take it?
Oh, how did I feel about this? I mean, so for me, within the larger context of how do we talk about women within the professional sphere, I could see why people were upset that she was the like grandma. I can see why people are upset, because they're like, why are they talking about that? She's a leading economist. She's a this. She's a that. We should emphasize that because we're talking about a serious job. But then at the same time, I was like, well, I think, you know, my mom wouldn't. She is a grandma, you know what I'm saying? So, and she's proud of that too. So she's proud of that as well. So I didn't feel like, initially, I didn't really feel particularly offended. However, when you put it in the larger context, like of how women are always relegated or associated with the domestic sphere, I see why people were annoyed. You know, I can see why.
Okay, so looking at where we ended that now, so there are different forms of feminism, you know, different people with different ways they practice theirs. So are you a feminist? If yes, if no, what do you think about feminism? And then is mom a feminist too?
Yeah, I'm definitely a feminist. I mean, hands down. I'm card carrying, whatever you want to call it. I'm very much a feminist. I know, you know, in some academic circles, many African women scholars also have womanist, because they felt that feminist was really created in the context of a white lens, like a white female lens. And so many Black scholars or Black other female scholars of color felt excluded from feminism because it really focused on whiteness. But the concept, the idea that women should be treated as equals to men, that women are just as capable of contributing to society, not just in the domestic sphere, but in all sorts of spheres like men are, I strongly believe in that. And if that's feminism, then I'm a feminist. And I would say that my mom is the same, you know?
I actually learned a new thing, that womanist and you know, feminist, that people are getting out of feminism because it's white. Wow, it's really not much in Nigeria. All we know, all we hear them say and do is feminism, and feminism. So thank you for, you know, giving me that. Okay, so the focus of this magazine is